China is one of the world's most populated countries, with a total population of 1.41 billion people and growing. Yet, it has a massive problem when it comes to its housing and real estate market. While you might think the problem is that there simply aren't enough houses for such a large population, you would be completely wrong. In fact, the answer is completely the opposite. Every year, China starts building 15 million new homes. And to put this into perspective, it's 5 times more than the US and Europe combined. As a result, the country has entire cities that are barely populated, and in some cases, no one lives there at all. It's not a small problem either. Around 20% of all urban residential properties in China are left empty. And to put that into perspective, that's enough houses and apartments for every single person in the entire country of France to be able to live in. Could you imagine living on a street where you'd only find a family living in 1 out of every 5 homes? These ghost towns in China have been extensively documented. One notable instance is a 2013 segment on China's deserted urban areas, featured on CBS's 60 Minutes. The report began with correspondent Leslie Stahl standing on a major road during rush hour, yet there were scarcely any cars in sight. In 2015, photographer Kai Camera embarked on a journey to China to capture the essence of these ghost cities. His pictures portray seemingly endless rows of high-rises with minimal signs of human activity, reminiscent of the eerily quiet urban landscapes witnessed during the global lockdowns amid the coronavirus pandemic. These aren't just small occurrences either, as experts believe that there are at least 50 cities that can be classified as ghost towns in this way. With China having 687 documented cities within its borders, this means that around 7% of its cities are barely populated at all. Interestingly though, a lot of these ghost cities, as they're often called, aren't exactly run-of-the-mill places and usually have a lot to offer prospective occupants. Most of them have well-connected infrastructure and roads, good access to public services, and lots of public spaces like parks and retail centers. But some of them take things a step further, with some truly unique cities that have global inspiration. Now, let's go over some of the most interesting ones, and don't forget to let us know which one you'd move into in the comments down below. One of the most famous ghost cities in China is Tiandusheng, which has been constructed to be a replica of Paris, complete with buildings with mock Parisian facades and even its own Eiffel Tower. The city, although deserted, with around 2,000 residents in a 10,000 capacity location, has proven popular for wedding photos for couples who can't get to the real thing. Although, apparently, the population here is finally on the up. China's also taken inspiration from the UK by creating a city known as Thames Town. This place has English-style brick buildings, red telephone boxes, pubs, statues of well-known fictional British figures like Harry Potter and Paddington Bear, and even its own fish and chip shop. So, it's no surprise that when it was first offered to buyers in 2006, it was immensely popular. But despite people snapping up the properties as investment opportunities, no one really moved into them, leaving the restaurants to close without any customers, and the city just becoming a massive investment plot. Donggui Town looks like a cross between Switzerland and northern Italy, and although it's not technically a town, it's a long street of bars and restaurants designed in a European style, complete with its own watchtowers. Again, due to the lack of occupation in the area, this had to close, along with many other theme parks and attractions that also face the same problem as China's new cities. It's not just themed towns and settlements that suffer from the ghost city curse either. Even cities intended to be new financial districts, or simply residential hubs to take the strain off of big cities like Shanghai and Beijing, can end up being deserted. Take Yuzhapu for example, a city that was built in northern China to serve as a financial hub in the area. Designed with a booming economy in mind, it features skyscrapers, shopping malls, and government buildings. However, almost 10 years have gone by since Yuzhaipu's construction, and still its population is so low that it is deemed a ghost town. One of the more famous Chinese ghost towns is called Ordos. Built in the inner Mongolian region of the country, Ordos was designed so that 300,000 people could comfortably live there. But the people who actually ended up calling the city home only numbered around 2,000. This led to Ordos looking like some sort of deserted apocalyptic landscape, making it popular with photographers. Documentary makers who are keen to show the extent of China's housing crisis as well as the surreal images it's managed to create also flock here. As one of the largest ghost cities, the Chinese government in recent years has been seeking to rectify the state of Ordos to help it become a thriving city like it was meant to be. They've done this by starting to bring top schools and universities into the city so that students and families looking to give their children a good location would move there. Would you ever think about moving to Ordos? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. Now, let's get back into it. So what exactly happened to get China into this housing crisis? Well, real estate used to be considered a secure and lucrative investment in China. The government actively promoted property investment as the real estate market played a crucial role in boosting the nation's wealth and household income through consistently rising property values. The communist government generated substantial revenue, reaching billions of dollars from land sales and the profits of the property market. This dependence on real estate is rooted in the Chinese constitution, which says that all land in the country is owned by the state. So, as a consequence, when developers wish to construct buildings on a piece of land, they must lease it from the government, typically by participating in local land auctions. Property investment is so prevalent in China because people in the country are much less likely to invest in stocks and shares. In the US, around 52% of people own stocks, and 65% have their own home or property. On the other hand, only 7% of China's population has stocks, but 90% of them own homes and properties. This includes their millennials, with 70% of them being homeowners or having a property portfolio when many in the US struggle to get on the housing ladder. The real estate boom in China hasn't only spurred massive infrastructure development, but has also led to significant shifts in where the population is living. Over 60% of China's massive population of 1.4 billion now live in urban areas like towns and cities. But even then, many cities aren't as busy as they should be. Another statistic that makes this property construction and investment boom all the more crazy to believe is when we look at the concrete usage of both countries. Between 2010 and 2013, China used more concrete than the US did over the entirety of the 20th century. For a while, property investment was booming, with developers scrambling to build more and more houses. But as time wore on, the demand for investment properties shrunk, and in its wake, countless empty towns and cities emerged. Properties simply became too expensive as investment opportunities, and an aging population already had existing portfolios that they didn't want to add to. In many ways, the real estate problem in China is a ticking time bomb. Although the country hasn't seen a crash the likes of which the US and Western Europe experienced in 2008 or Japan in the 1990s, it seems almost inevitable that such an event will happen here too. And one key factor that makes economists around the world feel like this is all too likely is the Evergrande Crisis. Evergrande is a housing development company that's based in China. It started from humble beginnings when Hui Kai-yan, a steel worker by trade, decided to start borrowing money from the bank to buy plots of land from the government. From there, he would then sell the potential homes on the plot before they were even built, and then use the money earned to pay off the bank loan, construct the houses, and push forward to the next project. This strategy really paid off for Hui Kai-yan, and as a result, he went from a simple blue-collar worker in rural China in the 1990s to the country's richest man within just 2 decades. After just a few years, he had earned the right to eat at some of China's top establishments, rubbed shoulders with the rich and famous, and even earned himself a position on the prestigious Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. The soccer team that he bought, Guangzhou Evergrande, managed to win Asia's top league in the sport in 2013. He hired scores of attractive female assistants and even threw cash up into the air as a form of entertainment at his offices. He only hired the very best, with the company offering 3 times the average salary than other real estate companies. He also kept himself involved in almost all decision-making in the company, including final sign-off on all land acquisitions, which he could have easily delegated to his top team. He proved himself to be a powerful entity, both in and outside of his business, with many not daring to oppose him even when it came to the company basketball games. Evergrande boasts an extensive portfolio comprising over 1,300 developments scattered across 280 cities in China, providing homes for a staggering 12 million people. But in actual reality, his company, China Evergrande Group, was in more trouble than it seemed on the surface. The way that the company's business model worked meant that it would always be reliant on investors and moneylenders to keep itself going as plots and projects became bigger and bigger. This was because the loans were then paid back by selling off the potential properties to be placed on the plots. And if they weren't snapped up quickly enough or not bought at all, Evergrande would be at a deficit that could easily start to snowball. With the company ending up more and more in debt, it resorted to some pretty strange strategies to try and keep itself afloat. Staff working for the company were asked to buy financial products from the company, with the proceeds helping to fund the company's main property business. They even had their bonuses docked if they failed to purchase enough to meet a quote that was set for all of the employees. Even the Chinese government itself, one of the primary reasons Hui Kuai-yan had been able to start his empire in the first place, started to raise concerns about the sheer amount of borrowing that was going on in the real estate market. Consequently, they put in heavy restrictions on offering financing to businesses that already had several loans. And Evergrande was one of those businesses affected. With more and more banks and lenders refusing to work with the company, they needed to find options that would allow them to keep operating. This is when Evergrande turned to trust firms to finance it. Trust firms are often referred to as shadow banks, as they can operate similarly but without many of the regulations that commercial banks are tied to. This made them the perfect candidates for solving Evergrande's money woes, and they knew it, offering much higher interest rates while knowing that the company, like many others, simply had no option but to agree to them. The debt that the company was in continued to skyrocket to record levels. In 2021, it had amassed over $300 billion in debt, something which you'd be more likely to attribute to an entire country rather than just a single enterprise. And this makes it the most indebted company the world has ever seen. This financial strain is further compounded by the precarious situation of 1.6 million undelivered apartments, and Evergrande has been consistently failing to meet its bond payment obligations. Evergrande faced additional troubles when it failed to meet the payment deadlines for its financial products, causing widespread protests throughout the country. In a tumultuous event at the company's offices in Shenzhen in September 2021, around 100 displeased investors gathered in the lobby, demanding repayment and creating chaotic scenes. But even despite this, Evergrande is a drop in the ocean when it comes to the full extent of China's real estate crisis and ghost cities. There are far bigger companies out there with more market share who are continuing to build, and who knows when the bubble will burst for them too. All we know is that the Chinese government is intent on this not happening. But it's not through regulating the real estate that it's been able to stave off a housing market crash for so long. It was simply through the workings of the housing market itself. The government strategy involves creating formidable obstacles to completing property sales, effectively discouraging homeowners from selling. The Chinese government has the authority to intervene in transactions by altering the minimum ownership duration for a home, or withholding a certificate of sale if property prices are deemed too low. Experts believe that while significant price drops may not be immediately obvious, there could be a substantial decline in transaction volume due to government interference. By halting sales, the government aims to avert the appearance of a sharp price decrease and prevent a potential market crash. However, this approach has a downside, particularly for individuals reliant on selling their homes to access cash. Real estate constitutes a significant portion of people's wealth, and those in need of funds for purposes such as education, healthcare, or retirement could face challenges due to reduced liquidity resulting from suppressed home sales. Those with only one property face the most risk, And of course, the answer to this in China's economy is simply to try to buy another one. Could you live in one of China's ghost cities? And what do you think is going to happen next when it comes to the real estate market in the country? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!